So the year before the pandemic, 2019, was actually when my old business started, the Feminist Coach Academy, with my business partner. And it was just kind of in a developing phase, like a pilot round, that year, 2019. And then, the pandemic hit and our business actually did pretty well during that. And we were offering cohorts, and so people would come and be a part of a cohort, and there were classes for them it was an online course that we were offering, but we were also offering community and all of that. And it had great success for until 2022.
Right.
In 2022, I was like, everything went to shit. And not just like in that realm, but I have to say though, I will get to this. Like 2022 was the hardest year for me, but it is also like one of the most important years for me. And sometimes those two things like coincide together.
Hmm.
And so my business was just, I don't want to say failing, but it kind of was. And then other things in my life were, I had loss, I was experiencing loss in other parts of my life. And it just felt like just a struggle, a really big struggle. And I probably cried more last year than any other time in my life. Um, I think I felt like I'm not where I want to be. And I thought I was heading more in the direction of where I wanted to be. But I was where my soul wanted to go next. It was just in this transitional period. And that can be some of the hardest times when we're in that transition period where something is ending or has ended, but something else is on the horizon. And for me, that was finally embracing, I want to be an astrologer and I'm going to study and take a course, get my certificate, which I did, and deepening my spiritual practice in a variety of ways. And that actually helped me get through it through the year.
Mm.
And I had like something new brewing on the horizon, and that really, really helped. And then the business of the Feminist Coach Academy officially ended at the beginning of 2023 this year. And it was kind of a surprise, but also kind of not, because it had been failing for like a year. And we tried everything and nothing worked anymore. And it was just like, what is happening? And then my business partner finally was just like, I can't do this anymore. And I decided to let it go with them. And I could have continued, but I just, I was very sad about it. And, but it also felt like this is the time to end this and to move on to the next chapter of my life
Mm.
and to pursue different things now.
Mm. Yeah.
So, but here we are.
Yeah. Here we are. Yeah. I mean, there's so much, so many different threads to kind of pull at there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And yeah, the kind of, I suppose, coming to terms with the change that maybe you don't want to see happen, and coming to
Yeah.
terms with that, I've tried everything and yeah, it's failing. I need to make a decision about this. And then seeing the new blossoming start within the end of something else, and yeah, kind of recognizing those and what do they mean and things like that. So, I mean, I'd love to. It's interesting that obviously the shift in the business in 2022 that you described. What was what do you have a sense of what kind of brought that about?
No, no,
No.
I really don't. It's a mystery to me. It might always be.
Yeah. So what was it that changed?
We just stopped making money
Yeah.
and people stopped signing up. Well, actually, we got a few signups, but it just wasn't enough to keep it going. And yes, stopped making money. The marketing we used to do didn't work anymore. We tried all different kinds of marketing. I mean, we tried for like a year,
Mhm.
and it got to this point where it's like we're not making money and we don't have the capital to invest in more marketing. That's the other thing. We just didn't have the capital to like invest in ads or like other things or to hire somebody to like do our marketing for us or something. So when you don't have those economic privileges, like, you are sort of in a different position. And um, I think, like, sure, there probably could have been some other things that could have been done to help save the business, but we weren't in a position to be able to do those things. And um, so, it came to a certain point where we needed to make a decision about it. Like, either we're going to go full in and keep it going and just keep trying, or we're going to say no. And by that point, my business partner was really burnt out as well. And I mean, I was burnt out too.
Mm.
Burnt out on really trying to make something work that just wasn't for so long. Also burnt out on the business itself, unfortunately. And because we went really hard for like several years with it, we were really ambitious with it. We did a lot of things. And I think that that also contributed to the burnout. But I don't regret it, like what we did. Like, sure, like maybe we could have gone at a little bit of a gentler pace or rate, or like maybe not tried to do all the things at first, with our first cohort and stuff. But I'm proud of us that we did. I'm
Mm.
proud of us for, trying the things that we did. And, um, yeah, eventually we did get burnt out, but it wasn't just that, it was economic, struggle and
Mm.
not having enough funding and investments. And we did, apply for things like that and um, not having enough capital. And, I think not enough like entrepreneurs and small businesses talk about that, right? Like the capital that you have to invest in your business is huge.
Yeah. 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 I think, and just hearing you talk in this way about it, I think it's such a breath of fresh air as well to hear that said, because I know that there are a lot of people who struggle in similar ways, and there's almost a taboo around, well, you've got to, whether it's fake it till you make it or just give this like impression that things are going a lot better than maybe they actually are.
Yeah, and I think they're really not going as great as most people think they are. And that's okay. Like that's the reality. Like when you don't have the capital to invest in your business, like you have to grow slower. And
Mm.
that I think that's fine. But we do live in a society that pressures us to make things happen now.
Yeah.
And so we think if we're not making money now, or we're not getting clients now, or we're not selling our product now, then we're not successful, or it's not going to work, or whatever. And that's not true, like,
Mm.
and so now I'm in like a new business, and I've had multiple businesses since I was 23 years old, and I'm 38. So it's like, it's been an entrepreneur a long time. And I know how this works. I know that it takes a while to really, grow your business. And everything that I've learned up until this point is making me like a better business person now with this new business too, because like I know how it works. I know the struggles. And but it's me. Like there's no other way. I can't be an employee. That's just like not, this is not me.
Yeah. You stand up, dust yourself off, and go again. Yeah,
Absolutely. And I'm
yeah,
multi-passionate, which I know you can relate to.
yeah, yeah.
And I think a lot of highly sensitive people are multi-passionate. So it's like, this new business I have, I'm so passionate about it. I'm very excited about this new chapter in my life. We are starting from scratch again, but there's also beauty in that.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing in itself. The idea of starting from scratch, because like although yeah, that's true on the one hand, it's also you're starting from a position
Of
that as you
experience.
yeah, and as you just said, you're sort of integrating all those things that you've learned from previous businesses and actually I have a tendency to always think, oh, I'm starting again from like base level zero. And actually it's yeah, easy to
But it's
forget
not
all of
really
those things
based.
that you
Yeah, it's not really
exactly
based. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. But it's also like, okay, I can now start this business. Well, I've already started it, but and so it's like I've been starting this new business, like kind of doing things in a maybe slightly different way than I have before, or just being more like I'm going in with like the tools that I've developed and with, like, okay, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna try this and I'm gonna, and I have more confidence this time around. I have more belief in putting myself out there and also just knowing that it's a long game, right?
Mm,
And trusting that.
mm.
And yeah, it definitely feels like I'm matured as an entrepreneur.
And so what are some of the like practical things that you've noticed have changed as you approach the new business?
Hmm. Well, relationship to social media has changed a lot. Yeah, that's a big
Yeah.
one. And I no longer rely on social media for like to be everything or to be like, you know, to, yeah, to be even like the main way I market myself. Like, I realize like I don't want to be on social media a lot. It's not good for my mental health. And and I get mad at it, like because you never know what the algorithm is going to do and if people are going to like your posts or whatever and or even see them and you start to like have this really like it's like unnecessary stress, like what and so it is like something I'm still working on, but I realize like I want to use like newsletters and my podcast as sort of like the main ways that I um, market and share content. And I love writing. I love writing newsletters. I love sharing them weekly. I love giving people, insights in those weekly emails. I love emails and I've started to like and podcasts but I think like just going with what you actually like and what your strengths, right? And what like doing using the platforms and the mediums that you actually enjoy and creating content that way. And um then using social media as just like a way to connect and share here and there, but not to rely on it too much or put too much into it because it is always changing and we never know what it's going to do and kind of like reassessing my expectations about that.
Mm, that's really cool. Yeah. Yeah. I like oh man, the social media algorithm. It's like an insatiable beast, isn't it? Where and you can put so much time and effort into creating these, pieces of content or whatever. And then it's just crickets. Like there's absolutely nothing. It's like, what am I doing? And I think one of the things I've noticed with something like Instagram is connecting with people who, you know, are potentially going to be interested in what I'm doing and everything. You then, the algorithm then sends you more people doing similar things to you. And I find that almost overwhelming in itself, because it's like, oh, I'm just one of so many people trying to compete in this space. And it's like, that is not like, I mean, a competitive mindset is not something that I really want anyway. But I just noticed that sort of changing my mentality, and then the impact that has on like my nervous system and like everything around it is huge. And yeah, hearing what you say about like, you know, connect with that thing that you enjoy, like whether it's the podcast, like writing, newsletters. I think, you know, email is still for me one of the most important parts of the way that I communicate with people, because it's personal. And like with podcasting, it's like you're in someone's ears, and there's a, like, you know, my relationship when I'm listening to podcasts, that like there's something about that vibe that is just so I don't know, meaningful, intimate, connecting, that you don't get with social media. And so it's just recognizing the purpose of these different things, and the value they give you personally, the value that they bring if you're running a business to your business, and just honing in on that stuff so that you're not burning yourself out on things that are just, time sucks, energy sucks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I heard somebody call social media, like especially Instagram, like social performativity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what it is, you know. Um, yeah, and I think, yeah, we should, yeah, like you said, like be cautious. And yeah, like the algorithm is not as smart as it thinks it is, because yeah, just showing you more of who you are,
Yeah.
essentially, like that. No. And I don't, I do have to be careful about who I follow because of that competitive side that can come out, or comparison or something. And it's like, okay, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like I don't like to fall into that trap either. Um, and I think that's okay to like have boundaries there, and, be careful about what you're consuming. We should be careful about what we're consuming, and yeah, just deliberate about all of that.
Do you have other things that tell you, like, when you're falling into that trap? Do you have things that you look out for?
Yeah, I don't know, why does it always come back to like anger for me?
Right.
Because I mentioned like being mad earlier. And that's kind of my signal, is like if I start getting mad, or like, and it's coming from like maybe a place of fear, really, like afraid that I'm not good enough, or that I'm not as good as them, or people won't like me, or um, whatever it is, right? So it's the anger oftentimes is coming from a place of fear. So it's probably that. But I notice like when I start to feel angry or like irritated, or kind of like, you know, like that's my signal.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah.
about you?
It's certainly irritation, like just, find myself getting annoyed with the people that I'm looking at. And I've kind of trained myself to to notice that, to become aware. Oh, yeah, I'm feeling there's like maybe some bitterness or resentment that's just,
Yeah,
I've
bitterness
noticed
and
growing
resentment.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, what's that telling me about what I'm feeling? Often a kind of sense of disconnect, or maybe isolation. So then
Mm,
I'll be like, okay, I need to
yeah.
somehow connect either with the person that I'm resenting in this moment.
Yeah, sometimes it is that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And just to remind myself that they're human, that they're the same as me, like all of that stuff. That actually, because I'm, again, one of the big issues with social media is that disconnect, that dehumanizing factor that,
Absolutely.
we can just forget that actually we're all trying to muddle on in the same kind of way. And actually that, yeah, just if I've been too much in my own head or behind a laptop for too long, that can then lead to that sense of isolation.
Mm,
And it's like, okay, I need to either connect with that person or connect with something around me, like just get out and, yeah,
right.
somehow I need to scratch that itch.
Right. No, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I think, yeah, going back into the beginnings and endings
Yeah.
thing, I don't know what the question is here, but kind of recognize, how do you recognize the opportunities within an end, especially when it's hard,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
you've explained that so well with the business and loss in other areas of your life, it sounds like, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, because, when my business partner told me like they were done, I could have, continued, and I chose not to because I was listening to that deeper voice,
Mm.
inside myself that said no. I don't want to go on without my business partner. And also, it just feels like the time to let this go, even though it's hard and it's sad. And so it's just that inner feeling of like, no, actually, I don't want to keep going. And even though I'm sad that this is ending, and I feel like it didn't live up to all of its potential, like there was so much more it could have been and done, we could have done with it. And like, we had so many hopes and dreams and goals with it,
Mm.
And so we had to let that go, and grieve that. And that's big. And I was depressed for a little bit. And but I did let myself feel all of the feelings of grief. But anyway, going back to your question, it's like I just listened to that inner feeling that I had of like, um, it's time to end this thing because other people like this is an opportunity to move on with something else. And I did have people go, well, you could keep it going and you could do this and you could do that. And there were people around me kind of like they wanted me to keep going, and
Mm.
they were throwing out ideas for me to do that. But I just felt that like, ugh, every time they did that, and like that's a sign, right? Like listen
Yeah.
to your body, right? Like what is it doing? It's just like, no, ugh.
Hmm.
So I'd be honest, and the more honest we are about that, the better off we're going to be because
Mm.
then we're not going to continue a situation or a business or an idea or something that we're no longer, that our soul is no longer aligned with or whatever, right? And so, again, I still don't know why it had to end, really. Like, why did it have to just like um, disintegrate? I don't know. But when it did, it felt like it was time to move on from it. It felt like it was time to let go
Mm.
and embrace a new beginning, a new chapter in my life. And yes, I still had to like feel all the feelings and go through all the stages of grief and be depressed for a while. And I did go and live with my parents for like a month because I was sad about that. There were a few other things in my life that I was unhappy about. And that really helped actually when I went to be with my parents for a little while. It really helped to just have their support and their stability. And that's also a privilege too. I know, like, not everybody has that. And that really renewed me. Um, but yeah, I think like the opportunity was listening to how I felt in my body and then embracing the new opportunity that awaited me. And fortunately for me, I already knew what that was, because I had already been embracing that, my
Right.
astrology
Yeah.
practice and pursuits. But some people don't know what's next for them,
Mm.
when something ends in their life. And so you are entering the unknown territory, and it's scary and it's hard and it's full of grief. And you just have to kind of trust and, wander around in the woods, the dark woods, for a little
Mm.
while.
Mm. Yeah, and you just described that so beautifully, and I think it's that allowing time is really there in several parts of what you've just said. Is like the patience and almost the trust that, okay, I just need to ride through this. I don't need to force anything, and obviously, having that chance to live with your parents for that month, and even having people making those suggestions, or you could carry on the business like this, and actually there's something, I can imagine that being quite frustrating to some degree, but it's also a good kind of clarifying and validating thing to have happen, because it's like, oh no, I can see there's a pattern here in my reaction which is sort of constricting. Like, I'm not, when I'm hearing these suggestions, I'm not getting excited. I'm feeling like, no, actually I don't want to be doing this. And the more that you can have that, the more confident you can be in that kind of the end, in the letting go of that thing. And also that grief that you described. And I'd love to hear more about how you kind of came to terms with all of those dreams that, you had all of this vision that for the business and all of this stuff, that actually that letting go of that is really, really tough. And yeah, I'd love to hear more. Was that a process, or yeah, how did that
Yeah,
come
it
about?
was because 2022, like I said, I cried a lot in 2022.
Mm,
And I'm not like the biggest crier, but it's like it was a struggle, right? And I was crying over like the loss of multiple things in my life, but that being one of them. And so 2022 was like grieving the the loss of the what the business was at the time, and like the can like how it just keeps decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. Things don't get better, things don't get better. So like grieving that. But then like 2023 was grieving, once we ended things, it was grieving the hopes and the dreams that we
mm,
had with it. Now that it's officially gone, we're officially done, there will be no more hopes and dreams with it, right? Like,
mm,
um, and so that had to go through its process. And I mean, I let myself feel my feelings, for a while. I mean, always, but, like to be sad for a while and to cry whenever that came, and to let it out and to be sad when I felt sad. And it came in waves. So there were days where it's like, oh, I feel like I'm accepting this.
mm,
And then there were days where I was like, oh God, just like really wrapped up in the grief. And like it just kind of came and went. And I think because I let myself feel those feelings, go through that process, and I didn't try to shove it away, I, eventually did get to a place where things felt just like calm, just like, yeah, this is, you know,
mm,
that was then and now is now. And I mean, I can talk about it now. And I don't really feel sad right now as I talk about it. I just feel like because so much has happened, like just I mean, this year is almost over, but it's like so much has happened this year, like the internal feelings and shifts, and then also externally in my life. So it's like yeah, I'm at a place now where it's like I've truly, truly come to that acceptance stage, and I really feel like I'm in this new chapter and things are happening for me. And and I have new hopes and dreams. um and those keep me going.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's such a well defined, yeah, articulated kind of story of that process, which I'm sure so many people will resonate with in different ways, whether it's like, the end of a relationship kind of reminded me of, breakdown of my marriage, when you kind of have this picture, this image, like, okay, we're building this for the rest of our lives. Like, that's what you're doing. And then suddenly that gets stripped away, and you've got this, all of those hopes and dreams and the things that you've kind of envisaged and imagined no longer are there. And so you've got to just allow them to, I guess, yeah, sort of lay them to rest, let them rest in peace. Um, and also, they will potentially be there forever as you kind of reflect back on, like, oh, I wonder what would have happened if that had turned out differently. And that to be okay and not a thing like, oh, I shouldn't think like that. It's like, no, that's a natural way to think. But then you also do then move into a season of those new hopes and dreams that you're talking about, and actually, okay, yeah, the story continues. There's another chapter to be written, and all of this is part of that same story overall. So that's great. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went through a breakup in 2021 and was still really grieving it last year, because it takes a while, because that also was a relationship um, that had a lot of hopes and dreams
Mm.
and a vision for the future. And then it was like, oh, okay, guess not.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I know that, yeah, I know that feeling as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah. It's a weird feeling.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Just to come back and to pick up on what you were saying earlier about, obviously you knew you'd been kind of exploring the astrology stuff. You knew, okay,
Hmm.
this is what I want to go and do. And interested to think about that, navigating that period of the new thing. And I don't know if you've got any, previous experiences of finding that thing that you're going to do next. Maybe if you don't have that ready-made path,
Yes,
because I
I
was,
do have
oh,
that.
you do,
I've
great,
had that. I've had that. Yeah. So this time around, I knew what the next thing was, but I have had a period in my life where I didn't. That's what you're asking about?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah. And yeah, that was like 2016. And I left my old business. See, I've had multiple businesses.
yeah.
Um, I had a personal training and running coaching business most of my 20s. And I think I was 31 when I decided, well, I had known, I had decided before that I didn't want to do that business anymore, but I was still seeing clients because it was like my income. But I had gone back to school to get my master's in anthropology and social change. So I did that like 28 to 30. And I thought there for a second, like, oh, I think I want to go for a PhD and be a professor. And then, though, nope. I felt that pull of going back to being an entrepreneur, going back to having my own business. I don't want to work for somebody else. It wasn't just like, I don't want to work for somebody else. It just was like a strong, just pull to like, no, I need to do my own thing and be in charge of that. And I'm used to that. It just feels like what I need to be doing. And so it's like, Nope, not going for a PhD. Nope, not going to be a professor. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Mm.
And then I decided I wanted to become a nomad. And I did. I became a nomad and I had no idea what I was going to do next. And I just kind of worked some odd jobs for a while and kind of just bring in some money. Like, I don't know if you know what Postmates is.
Postmates.
Yeah, it's kind of
No.
like Uber Eats. Do you know what that is? Or
Yeah, yeah,
DoorDash?
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so I worked that because it was
Okay.
like flexible and you don't have a boss. I mean, you're not like an employee. That was helping at that time. At that time, they were still pretty new, so working for them was actually better than it is now, I
Mm.
imagine, in a lot of ways. Yeah, so I did that. I did, but I had then started like in 2016, I started a new blog and a new podcast, Real Feminist Stories. It wasn't a business, wasn't making money, but I was like, this is what I want to be doing. I'm just going to do more of it. And then, try to, work these other little jobs and bring in some cash while I live this sort of wild life. But, and so like kind of an adventure. It was like really, truly like I had stepped into the unknown and was just flying by the seat of my pants for a while. And that
Hmm.
is not for everyone. I am, like it had its struggles. It had its kind of fun, adventurous moments as well. And, I had friends who would let me stay with them. I had, I started getting to house sitting for people. There were a lot of different things I did, and I had some resources to rely on there with people that I knew and connections and stuff. But yeah, I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants for a while, but I just kept following what I was passionate about and like not knowing if it would become a business or whatever. Like, but then eventually I felt this strong pull to like do life coaching. And then I got into that. But, there was a while where I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And people are like, wait, what are you doing? And why did you leave your studio? You had such a nice studio and now you're just like a nomad and now you're just like why did you leave your clients? Like I left stability. And that's what
Hmm.
people basically were asking me is like, why would you leave stability and security to just basically um, enter in the unknown?
Yeah. And what was your answer to those questions?
I just, the thing is, like, I don't really have an answer that makes sense to anybody
Yeah.
because it was just like my soul wanted this kind of freedom and I had to say yes to it. And it had been brewing for a while because before I like decided to move out and do this, I had some friends that these started like living the van life or like I've actually met someone who was house sitting full time and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting because I'm actually kind of a homebody. I'm not like a van person.
Mm.
But I it had been brewing like I need a change. I want to go. And I had this feeling like even though yes, I had a great little studio, my landlord next door was a dick, but I did have a great little studio. um and but I had this feeling of like I can't be here anymore. Like I just need to go. I need to get out. I need to get out. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do, but I need to get out and I need to explore. And that's all I could tell you was that that's the feeling I had that was very loud. And I just decided to go with it and to put all my faith in it. And, you know, then, yeah, I did
Yeah. Inspiring. Yeah. Yeah. I think I imagine a lot of people can
I mean, I
identify
don't
with.
necessarily recommend it for
No,
everybody.
no, no. And it's one of the things that I'm often saying, I often say to people because I stay with different people and I'd be like, I don't advocate for the sort of life that I'm living. And I'm very glad that not everybody does it, because it means that I get to stay with people.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
and I think it really speaks to, there's a lot of the time we get caught, especially in the world of, the online world, blogs, podcasts, like people dishing out life advice and those kinds of things. It's almost like, I believe everyone needs to, I'm going to tell everyone how to live, or how to live generally, and
Yeah,
they need
right.
to live like I do. And it's like, I'm so grateful for the fact that not everybody does. And
Oh, absolutely.
it's
Yeah, no. And
really
I hate
important.
that thing where it's like, yeah, just do what I did, or because I did it, you can too. Or it's like, no, like everyone has their own path and
Mm,
just needs to follow that, has their own nudges, and it's like, follow your nudges. My nudge now is stability. I'm going back to stability,
yeah.
like, and so yeah, there's these periods in our life where it's like, this is what the soul, or, our human self wants to do now. Listen to that. And then that changes eventually, right? It's all about change. Change is inevitable. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad I went through that period and said yes to that. And I'm also glad that, I'm entering a new one now,
Mm,
a different one. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And it's that recognizing this isn't forever. There's things, and certainly coming out of a particular season, and dealing with a big change as we've been talking about, it might be, actually I have no idea what I'm going to do next. I had my eyes, my vision was focused on that thing that I thought was going to happen. That isn't happening. I don't have a clear picture of what I'm going to do instead.
And
And
that's
it's,
okay.
yeah, and that's fine. And it's kind of, okay, I'm going to just explore. And it's almost a difference between like a rebound and a committed, like relationship or whatever, like in the context of life itself. It's like, actually there may be a place for those rebound things, just to get yourself going, get yourself sort of exploring. And so,
Absolutely.
and what you said about being exposed to, meeting the people who are living the van life, meeting the person who's doing a lot of house sitting, actually creating that sense of possibility, the sense of, oh no, these alternative ways of doing things, like allowing that to occur in us, and the possibility of that to occur. And it's like, I might be coming from this place where this, becoming a nomad is so alien to everybody who's been in my life, but actually it's not an alien concept. But I need to find people who can be role models for me, who can show me, how do you make this work? This thing that, as you say, my soul is calling out for, like this part of me is kind of gravitating towards this change. Okay, who are the people that I might need to kind of invite into my life who can show me how that can be possible?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And there have been people in my life always kind of modeling what it is I want to do next. And whether anybody else in my life gets it or not, right? It's just like having those one or two people, and maybe they know who you are, maybe they don't, right? Like maybe you just
Mm,
listen to their podcast, or and they don't
yeah,
even know you exist. That can be a role model though, right?
yeah.
Like, so people who you know in person or just like online, or that are living in a way or doing something that is interesting to you, that
Mm,
speaks to you. Like, you don't have to, like, if you're in a space of unknown, you don't know what's next, you don't have to commit to anything. Like, just explore, just follow what you're interested in. You don't have to make a big commitment to it. Just keep like saying yes to what you feel drawn towards.
yeah, very well put. Yeah, I think for some people, it's recognizing what those nudges are, and they can be
Yeah,
so sort of tampered down that it can be
right.
hard to know what is your nudge, what is the message that you've
Yeah.
internalized from other people. yeah, any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think going back to your bodily response, like we were talking to like how I would get that response. So, like people are like, you could continue this business, you could do this,
Mm,
this, and this. And I had that like I felt tightness in my body. I felt that like I wasn't excited by it. So like listening to that, because your body doesn't lie in that regard. Like it's like, okay, do I feel some like ease and space in my body with this, idea, or does it feel like constricting or like sometimes we can be afraid of what we really want to be doing. And so there is a feeling of fear, but there's also like another feeling that's just like it's still calling your attention and you're just like, and so like that's something to pay attention to. And I think, just take like baby steps with it, just kind of like allow it, give it a little attention, but you don't have to fully commit, just keep kind of like interesting, be curious about what that is. Cause I've had that and it's like, I'm, I don't know, I'm not ready to like embrace that, or I don't know, that could change my whole life.
yeah.
Like, um, but over time, you kind of like, you just stay intrigued. And over
Mm,
time, it kind of just maybe like develops when you're just like,
mm,
get a little more comfortable with it and just like, okay, all right. Like I told my ex, who, like back in 2019, I was like, I'm going to be an astrologer, you know, but I wasn't ready to like actually like study or like, really fully embrace it. And um his response was like, "Oh, I don't need another astrologer in my life." So that didn't help.
oh dear.
But I was like, yeah, but I wasn't gonna let him dictate that for me. I just myself wasn't quite ready to like fully, but I was like, I really kind of want to do this. And it took a couple of years for me to be like, no, I'm doing this.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And even that, like, it's almost like experimenting by just putting it out there to other people and
Yes,
recognizing,
exactly. Like someone you trust.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
it's like, what am I don't know, what's my reaction to their reaction?
Yeah.
Like, and if I'm disappointed that they're not, oh, not, I don't need another astrologer in my life. Like, if that, it's like, oh, that must mean that this is important to me, or vice
Yeah,
versa.
absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's really great that you touched on that. The fear might be a sign, or that kind of being afraid might be a sign that actually, no, this isn't the thing for me, but it might be the sign that it is the thing for you as well. But you don't
Exactly.
have to go full on, everything into it all at once. And like in my experience, and I know with a lot of highly sensitive people as well, it's that integration of possibility over time kind of just
Yeah.
allows it to almost assimilate into you. And
Mm.
before you know it, down the line, it's like, actually, this feels like an inevitability rather than this alien concept.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And again, that requires time. It requires, yeah,
it does. And I think we
patience.
have multiple destinies, and I think our destinies find us in different times of our life, but it's up to us to answer the call, and it's like, okay, like this thing kept being around and it kept like, and I've,
Mm,
just was like, kept being curious. And then I finally was like, all right, I took the action, and
yeah,
I embraced it. And that's happened to me multiple times in my life with, multiple things.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, um, and it can happen too with things that aren't related to career. 2 years ago, I got into baseball, total most random thing ever in my life. Like, why? I don't know. And I'm into it. I'm like totally into it.
You're still into baseball, Lee?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. and everybody who knew me at the time, like who had known me, was like, "What? Really?" And I've been an athlete my whole life, but I was a runner,
Hmm.
and I also did dance when I was younger. But I was never into team sports, and I never watched team sports. I did watch the Olympics, but it was always like individual events usually. Baseball? No, it was not on my radar. Okay, I knew
Strange.
nothing. I mean, I'm telling you, fate found me, but I said yes. I got curious. I one day sat down, turned on the TV, started watching it, and I felt like home. I was like, this is strange.
That's so interesting.
I know. So it's like a new hobby had developed in my life that I became passionate about and more knowledgeable about. And, like we're passionate people. We don't take our hobbies lightly. Like
Mm.
we have a hobby, we're going to know all the ins and outs about it. So like I've been studying baseball, like I've been watching a lot. I'm really knowledgeable. I'm a new fan, but I know more than a lot of like people who have been fans for a long time because I've just dove in deep.
Yeah. That's great. I love that.
Yeah, but I like that's an example of like, hey, something totally
Mm.
random could come and find you. You feel a pull. You're like, what? This?
Yeah.
Why?
That
But like it
something
could
weird
bring you so
clicks.
much joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
Oh, amazing. I think that's a great way to end. find,
absolutely.
yeah, well, open your receptors to, yeah, your proverbial baseball invitation. I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you,
Cam,
Andy.
it's been so good. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me and taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.